Hi, thanks so much for joining me. Today I'm going to be talking about how to integrate Alexa and other voice applications with your cross-channel marketing strategy. My name is Davida Gaffney, and I am an email and web developer. My background is in web development and email marketing and graphic design. But this isn't a presentation about how to program or code skills for your Alexa. So this is accessible to people without any familiarity or knowledge of code. I work as a member of an in-house marketing team at StorageMart. We have a couple hundred locations across the US and Canada and the UK. And we are headquartered in Columbia, Missouri. We have a pretty small marketing team, which obviously presents challenges, but it's also allowed me the opportunity to take my side interest, which has been building applications for Alexa, and bring those to my boss and be able to really run with my ideas. And so I've been able to build out my brand's voice presence and strategy. Which is super exciting, and that's what brings me here today, to encourage everyone here to bring some knowledge back to your teams and see this is really a channel that maybe you haven't even really thought of, but it's actually pretty important, and it's really pretty accessible to jump into and get started in. So just a quick overview to begin with. What we're going to look at is I want to make the case that beyond playing with Alexa or your voice assistants and it being a fun novelty thing to do, voice needs to be part of your marketing strategy. And so I'm going to show you some data that backs that up. And then there's a lot of tools you can use to build out your voice applications, but I'm going to show you one tool that I highly recommend everyone start with, no matter what your coding capabilities. And I will get into kind of the whys of that too. And then I have a 3-step quick start approach for how to get your voice presence established, up and running pretty quickly. And I have our StorageMart example to show you. So the crux of all of this is to start building applications. You need to just start, and then you start integrating in places where it's appropriate and fits in with the other ways you're already communicating with your customers. So we're going to end with a review of how StorageMart has integrated this and plans to integrate it further in the future with our other marketing channels. And then I have some ideas too about where that might fit in for other industries. Before we begin, I want to review a couple key pieces of key terms. The first is we need to just establish the difference between voice assistants and voice applications. When people think about voice technology in general, what we're usually thinking of is our voice assistants like Alexa, Siri, Google Assistant, maybe Bixby. And that is, that's a type of voice application, right? They're often associated with a brand and a specific device. It's a type of application though. And when I'm talking about building your brand's voice application, what we're talking about is a set of voice-driven interactions and capabilities, a set experience that might go through or be associated with an assistant, but it's not an assistant per se. And so with voice applications, all these different assistants and different devices have the ability to build voice applications, but they have different names for them. So for example, for Google, when you build a voice application for Google, it's called an action. When you build a voice application for Bixby to use on your Samsung, it's called a capsule. And when you build a voice application for Alexa, it's called a skill. There are all types of voice applications that you can build, but they have their specific names depending on what brand and what assistant you're building them for. And one note is that Apple and Siri do not currently have the ability for third-party voice developers to develop any applications. That's just not something that they have opened up yet. So it's important in clarifying the difference between application and assistant and the different terms for an application depending on what device you're building for, just so that as you go out and you start building and you start doing research and looking for resources, you know the correct terms to get the information and the help you need. So voice is a fun thing, and it's a neat, sometimes novelty experience to interact with your Alexa. But you know, the question is it more than just a fun little game? And I am here to tell you, yes, it is. It has the fastest adoption rate of any consumer technology in history. So what that means is that more than 50% of the population in the US has already adopted a smart speaker. So the users already exist, and we got to this point faster than users picked up smartphones, then they got onto the internet, then computers, radio, television, faster than any of those things. So this is definitely something your brand is going to need to pay attention to. There's also an opportunity to build brand authority. Make your brand the answer. When you build out voice applications, for example, in Alexa, if you have a skill with a specific answer, when Alexa's answering somebody's inquiry, it first searches its own database, its own part of its own knowledge built by Amazon, and then the next thing it does is search through the skills in the skill store. And so if you've built out a skill with information that can answer these kind of questions that people are having, you've already started to build some brand authority there. And a great example of this is Tide built out a skill about stain removal. And so people with sort of product adjacent information, if you're able to put that out there, when there's potential customers asking Alexa for some help with something, if you've already built the skill with the answer, you'll be able to jump right in there and get some and make your brand the answer. I think one of the most exciting things about why we should pay attention to voice is the potential for the customer experience and the true integration into our customers' lives, into their homes and their cars, while they're in the middle of their routines. There's the potential for so much less friction to really fit in, really where we're adding value for them when they need it. And we can kind of see that in this graphic, just showing where consumers have their smart speakers. And if there is a service or a piece of information your company can provide, or a need your customers might have specific to these locations in their home, that's super relevant. If you could come in there with some answers, with some solutions for them, to be the brand they go to and the one they ask right when they need it, where they need it. So thinking about like the bedroom and the kitchen, the living room, particularly if you have any products that fit in there, that's a huge potential for building customer brand trust and loyalty. Tools. There's a lot of tools to get started and to build out your applications, but I'm focusing on one specific tool, and it's called VoiceFlow. And I would recommend this because it's super easy to use. They have a great community of support and it's free. They have like paid tiers, but you don't need those to get started at all. It's a drag and drop builder. There's a ton of pre-built integrations, and you can add custom code if you want, but it's just not necessary. They have a really active Facebook user group community with people on all hours of the day all over the world willing to jump in and help everyone out. And also their own company team is really responsive. So that is a nice drop and drag tool that anybody can jump in and build out their voice experience in. So VoiceFlow is really easy to build in, and you can also use it to trigger events in Iterable. So it's really easy to get started using this drag and drop tool to build out the cross communication, the cross-channel communications. Here's an example of one I did as a proof of concept. And I built out a workflow for a property management company for customers to come in and submit a complaint or a maintenance request. And we ask for the type of request. We route it to the appropriate message. This is just a proof of concept, so I used a Google Sheet from my database, and they have pre-built integrations for that. And then as soon as we capture their type of request, it adds it to our Google Sheet, and then it triggers an event in Iterable. And so you can see my campaign in Iterable, and I have some dynamic content pulling in there from my event, just like we would at any other campaigns. So you can get started with this drag and drop builder Iterable, and that's really easy. You've got a lot of support to do that, but sometimes all the potential possibilities and the excitement can make it hard to focus and just take the next best step forward. So what I have is a 3-step, just really quick start, iterable process to help you get going. And this is what we used, and it worked really well for us. So number 1, your first step is to just establish a presence. You're just informing, put some information out there. Put just some basic brand information on your voice channel. For example, when StorageMart did it, we just used content from our website FAQ. And that's absolutely what I would recommend anyone get started with. You probably have the content already. Just build it out for the voice channel. So the next step is to extend it. And you're thinking about how to improve the experience. Add a little bit of new information or better information. Maybe you're building out your views or hitting different channels. Like if you start with Alexa, maybe you build out in Google. We took a pretty small step forward that worked well for us, and we focused on how our users were interacting with our content, and we tweaked it to be more conversational. So we just had our existing answers that we literally put into a voice application. Then we went back, reviewed, and thought about, okay, when you're actually talking, how does the conversation flow? And we made it fit a more natural conversation. Our next step is transact. And this is where you're thinking about conversions and CTAs, and you start taking your steps towards some ROI. You're probably going to do this by connecting your voice experience to backend databases. Just taking this experience a little bit deeper and connecting it with other things going on with your company and other conversations your customers are trying to have. So for StorageMart, for example, to transact, to take this the next step, what we did is we collected customer information for a phone call follow-up. So if customers weren't able to find the information they needed from our FAQs, we provided a way to transfer them or transfer their contact information to our call center so they could have a person follow up with them. And I can show you a quick example of our first Alexa skill. Hey Alexa, ask StorageMart if I can live in my storage unit.
No, you are not allowed to live in a storage unit. As tempting as it may seem for the rates that storage units go for, it's unsafe and illegal.
Can I rent month to month?
Yes. All of our leases are month to month, renewing at the first of the month.
Can you connect me with a person?
I'll just need a few contact details confirmed. Please confirm your first name.
Davida.
And last name?
Gaffney.
Can you confirm the best phone number to reach you at?
123-456-7890.
Thank you, Gaff. A storage expert will give you a call shortly. Have a great day. Goodbye.
So that's StorageMart's first Alexa skill. And you can see we went through the steps of creating some initial informative content. Our next step was to improve the customer experience and make it fit the voice channel a little bit better, make it more conversational. And then we built out the connection so that if people weren't getting the information they needed, they could talk to a person and we could have a lead. And that's our first go at this. And our next step is thinking about how can we take this further? Where are the other cross-channel opportunities where this fits in with our customer journeys? And before we get into that, I think we need to think about the voice channel and what its strengths are and what it's not so great at. And so I have a voice channel audit. And when we are looking at where is the best way to use and to communicate with our customers through voice, what we can think about is that some of the strengths and opportunities here are that it's hands-free. Most of the time it's sight-free. There's a very low learning curve because it's just a natural process. So people of all ages can do it, all abilities. It's non-interruptive of what you're in the middle of because it's such a natural thing to have that conversation. And it can feel more intimate, obviously more one-on-one conversation versus having an ad or a brand talk at you. Some of the challenges are that for the most part, the voice interaction is dependent on being invoked by the user. So for the most part, you're not pushing out voice prompts to people. You have to wait till they're ready and they ask for what they want. And voice might not be the best way to retain or reference information depending on what it is, like graphs or a lot of information or lists. There's some limitations around if the area needs to be quiet. Maybe it's not appropriate to be interacting with a voice assistant, or if you're in a public place, maybe that's not inappropriate either. So with those things in mind, thinking about finding the appropriate channel for each task. For StorageMart, our next step is thinking about helping customers pay their bills. Right now, our first channel that we communicate on is we send them an SMS. We would add that customer could use Alexa to pay their bill. And then as a receipt of their transaction, they would get the email. For my property management example, you could use voice technology to submit a request. Your next channel would be your confirmation, which the appropriate channel would probably be email. And then we could send out an SMS or email to the site managers or the maintenance crew to follow up. For something like a health and wellness app, if you're trying to think about logging your food or a food journal. Maybe your one touch point would be a mobile push reminding customers to hop on and update their journal. Then the customer could easily interact via voice if it was just something quick and they wanted to do before they forget it. And then they receive weekly summaries more in an email format. Another example might be trying to increase repeat purchases. You would receive an order reminder via email, maybe another reminder down the road through SMS, and allowing people to make that purchase when they're ready conveniently by voice. The biggest thing is there's no right or wrong way to always be using voice. You just need to think about what is the specific use case, what makes sense for the customer at that point in time, and try it out. Experiment with it and see where it's working and where it's following through. So now that I've walked you through some examples of how to build voice technology into your existing workflows, I hope you're inspired to get started with this valuable channel. Here are some resources that will help take your campaigns to the next level. These resources are from the companies behind the popular voice assistants, and they will help guide you through the process of setting up your voice applications. And don't forget that this session can be accessed on demand whenever you need these resources down the road. And lastly, I'm also a resource. I'm happy to help pave the way for your brand's voice innovation. Definitely send me any questions in the chat, and I will be in the networking lounge after this if you'd like to discuss how to apply voice technology to your brand.